Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nugget Climbing Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Dimmitt. Today's guest on the podcast is Katie Lambert. Katie is a lifer and has had success in just about every facet of the sport of rock climbing. She's a professional climber. She's also written countless articles for Climbing Magazine, owns a small business with her husband, Ben Ditto, and she has a master's degree in nutrition. We talked about her involvement in the film Pretty Strong, about climbing with Nina Williams and what she and Nina learned from one another. We talked about her training and how she used the deadlift to fix her lower back pain. We talked about how she thinks about structuring her year to balance the many disciplines of climbing that she engages in. And we talked about nutrition and got some really interesting recommendations that I think could be helpful to anyone, not just to climbers. All the products, exercises, and routes we mentioned are linked in the show notes at thenuggetclimbing.com. I also wrote out Katie's nutritional recommendations for you guys as a reference, and you can find those in the show notes as well. This episode was recorded at the end of February and is the last episode that I recorded pre-coronavirus. Katie came out to Vegas to show a screening of Pretty Strong, and she was gracious enough to sit down with me the next morning before driving back to Bishop. I had never met Katie before the interview, so I really appreciate her for sitting down with me. And a big thanks to Jonathan Segrist for connecting us, and to both Jonathan and Shayna for being kind enough to offer up their house and to let us sit at the living room table while they were trying to have a normal Wednesday morning and make breakfast. You can hear them both chime in near the end of the interview, and it's actually pretty funny. But thanks to both of them, and thanks to Katie, and thanks to you guys. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you guys. Please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Katie Lambert.
Cause, no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.
Cool. I think things sound good.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. This is kind of last minute. I know you're trying to take off later this morning and head back to Bishop, but I appreciate you making the time.
No worries.
We're in Vegas right now. Last night I got to go see Pretty Strong, which you are featured in, and you're here for that just for the day, and it sounds like you're driving back to Bishop. It was amazing. It was a really great film. You're in there climbing with Nina Williams, and you guys did Father Time.
Yeah.
A 13B, 20 pitches?
Yeah, 20 pitches.
On the Middle Cathedral in Yosemite. What was your experience like being on the other side of the film?
Just in general or on that route in particular?
Either, whichever one you feel more interested talking about. Maybe we can get into a little bit of both.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's funny being part of something like that because the filming goes on for a long time.
Yeah, how long did it take?
So, like, the route itself, you don't get this from the film, but, we were up there for 6 days. In the film, it looks like we were just there for, 2 or 3 days or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that took 3 days. We had, prepped for the route before, also, fixing all of those lines for Julie to be able to film on. That was, some days. So, that whole filming of that was probably over 9 days. But then in general, all of the other footage that you see, before we start that route, it's Nina bouldering throughout the season before, then me climbing. It was probably about 1.5 years of filming with Julie, following us both around here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're kind of joking about her. Oh, Julie's here again?
Yeah.
You're trying to do your training.
Trying to just do my thing, go to work, do some training, live my life, and I'm like, dang, there's Julie. Guess we're filming.
What did it get hard to kind of stick to your routine and do your thing?
No, because she's so easygoing and casual about it. She just kind of would tag along and be like, okay, well, what's your plan today? Okay. I'll just be there in the corner.
So it was really interesting in the film. Nina ended up sending. You didn't end up sending. And for people that are listening, I'm guessing that more people will have seen Nina Williams in other climbing movies and footage and stuff like that. They might not be as familiar with who you are, but people should know that this route is totally in your wheelhouse. You had every reason to be up there. You've done other things, 513 big wall, stuff like that recently, and of course there was a really good chance that you were going to send. So tell me about that. You kind of spoke to something in the Q&A afterwards where you were speaking to, or no, it was in the film. You were speaking to that kind of interesting balance where you're psyched for your partner, but your ego's kind of
sure, it's like wounded.
Damn it.
It's not to say that route isn't hard. It's quite difficult.
There's 3 13B pitches.
3 13B pitches, and it's not just like your standard 13B. And if anyone's familiar with Mikey Schaefer, he puts up like pretty stout routes.
Is it his route?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're always quite hard for the grade. And, the first pitch, 13B, it's called the boulder problem. It's probably like V9, which that's pretty hard for 13B, to be honest, It's just that it's short, and so it's over pretty quickly.
Okay.
Second pitch, also 13B, and it's, more enduro. It's very bouldery at the start, quite reachy, and then, just like enduro lie backing. And I could say that's probably true to the grade 13B.
Okay.
The next crux pitch, the index corner, also 13B.
Mikey joked that one's just the one with no holds.
There
There's
really are
holds.
like no holds. It's just like this really weird Houdini kind of Yosemite climbing, or I guess something you'd find up in index.
Okay.
I think that one's probably really hard to grade. And you could consider it as it'll never be easier than 13B.
Okay.
But anyway, we were both feeling really good.
Yeah.
And then on the previous day of hauling, my right pointer finger got pinched between 2 beaners.
Oh, damn.
And it created like a massive blood blister.
Okay.
That I just didn't know what to do about. Like, I was like, should I pop it or should I just leave it and see what happens? And so I just left it. And then the day that we start climbing from the ground, I climb, it's amazing conditions. Everything's going great. No falls. And that's like up to 12C, the first 10 pitches. And it was fine. Totally fine. And then the next day when we're going to head up into the cruxes, it busted open in one of the upper 12Cs.
Oh, man.
And it was like raw. And like I really couldn't climb on it. I had to tape it. It's hard climbing with like a fully taped tip.
Yeah.
It kept sliding off.
Especially in that style.
Yeah. And then to make matters worse, we dropped the tape draw.
Oh, damn.
And so I ended up missing out a whole like day and a half of climbing on the cruxes because we dropped the tape and like it's on the ground.
Oh, shit.
And Julie happened to be coming back up to film like in 2 days. And so she got it off the ground and brought it up with her.
Did she bring a backup roll?
I don't remember. I think we were like, could you bring an extra just in case? But not being able to climb on those pitches for like a whole day and a half really kind of set me back because Nina was like getting it more dialed. And it was like, yeah, she's going to send them for sure. And it's not that I needed to really work out the beta, but, it's like nice to have something dialed when you're going to go for the summit push. Anyway, it just happened to be that, like, once I got the tape back and was, like, taping it, it was just sliding off.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, like, crimp that hard on it. It would, like, slide a little. I'd, like, lose some. And just in the end, it was like, okay, Nina's going to lead the crux pitch. And if she sends, then I'll, like, try and top rope it behind her. If she doesn't send, then I'll try to lead it. It was kind of like, how are we going to balance? Are we both going to try to lead the pitches right now? And then it was like, yeah, she's sending, I'm not sending. How are we going to make the call on, like, what we do? And so it was our 4th day up there, I believe, or 5th day. And it was like, okay, she needs to do the second crux pitch and the third crux pitch, and then we're going to try to go to the top. I still need to do all of the crux pitches, so I'm going to try the boulder problem. And if I send it, then I'm going to try the next one, and we'll just, like, flip-flop like that. But if I don't send the boulder problem, then I'm just going to jug and we're going to like get to the top.
Go support mode.
And so I ended up falling right at the end of the boulder problem on this gas stone. And the tape just like came off my finger and I whipped off and I was like, all right, that's it.
Just the one try?
Yeah, it was like maybe second try or something.
Okay.
But it's like, you had 2 more 513s, 2 very hard 512s, another 510, a 59, and then like a 58 to the top. So we really couldn't like just keep messing around with, I'm going to keep trying.
Got you.
By that point, yeah.
You have an incredible resume, spanning all the different disciplines, and you're a total crusher. I'm curious, what is your feeling about being in the film, and your part of the film's like well, damn, I have this gnarly blood blister and I can't really send the gnar.
Yeah.
Yes. How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's a little funny because you're like kind of like the lame duck in a way, but then not really. It's like you say, like I have done so much, so I'm comfortable with it. Maybe if I were like a little bit younger,
okay,
I would be like more freaked out by how I like come across. But I don't know. It's kind of like Emily says in the film, like a big part of climbing is failing, like not succeeding. And I mean, it's true. Like there's no like fluff stuff there. Like that's just what happens sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just the skin on your finger.
I mean, as small as that can be, like it's crucial. Like you need all of your, unless you're Tommy Caldwell, like you need all of your fingers to be like in tip-top shape to sin, you know? Yeah.
Totally. So Nina spent quite a bit of time in Bishop at this point, and you've been living there since what, like 2006?
2010.
2010. Okay.
Yeah.
Had you spent time with her before?
A little bit in the boulders,
Okay.
but not too much. Yeah.
Is there anything that you learned climbing with Nina on the route?
She's, you know, I said last night, she's not only like incredibly strong and very powerful, but like she's really good at figuring out beta and being able to just like execute it. I don't see that very much. It's like maybe people like waffle back and forth with like, I think that's how I'm going to do it. I'm not sure. Maybe this way still works. She can just execute once she knows she could do it a certain way. Even if it's maybe not the most efficient way, she's like, that's the way it's going to go. I'm going to do it. That was really impressive. She's also just like this genuinely calm and kind presence, which for someone who's like such a high-end climber, like that's really nice to be around.
Huh.
There isn't a lot of like ego in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's super cool. Do you think there's anything that she learned from you?
She says she learned a lot. I don't know.
Cool. That's awesome.
She learned how to, for sure, like haul a bag and dock a bag and
a lot of the logistics stuff.
the logistics of like wall climbing. As far as like climbing techniques, I don't know. She would comment over and over again, like, God, you're such a good climber. Like, you climb very well. You have really good footwork. But I mean, she's such a good climber and also has very good footwork. Like, I don't think I really taught her anything about climbing. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, there's a great scene in the film where you guys are setting up the portaledge, and it looks like Katie knows what she's doing, and Nina's like figuring out what she's doing.
Yeah, there were some instances like that, especially when we started rapping in the dark, and Julie's rapping with us. We have all these ropes, and I'm just like, I didn't want to keep being the one to tell everyone what to do. So I would just kind of let them do stuff and try to figure it out. But it had gotten to this point where like they were just kind of junk showing hardcore. And I was like, all right, just give me that stuff. This is what we're going to do. And they're like, how did you do that? And I was like, I don't know, just lots of years of experience, I think.
Nice. So in prep for this, I was familiar with you, but I didn't really know what you'd been up to the last couple of years. So I start Googling around, and I find your blog, and I couldn't have asked for a more comprehensive like wrap up of what you've been up to lately. You wrote a blog post about a year ago, and I think it was reflecting 2018, and it was just like a highlight, like one sentence, like this is what I did here, and it was perfect. And I have tons of questions about it, so I'd love to kind of get into some of your climbing and your training. One of the first things, and again for people that don't know, you've bouldered up to V10, you've climbed 514, you've climbed hard 13 trad and big wall stuff. You also do some training.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say also, you do quite a bit of training. And there's a few things that stood out to me that I'd love to get into.
Okay.
Tell me about your deadlifting.
I love deadlifting. It started because for years I had chronic low back pain.
Okay.
And a friend of mine, Ian Nielsen, who lives in Bishop, really good climber, good trainer, he's like a strength trainer, was suggesting that, you know, you should try it might help you. And for sure, I started deadlifting, I think it was in 2016. And quickly like noticed actually my back doesn't hurt me anymore.
Yeah.
And it would be like, not really like I'm sitting at the table and my back hurts, but it would be like all day out at the crag and I feel fine. But then when we're like walking back to the car, I'm like, dang, like my low back hurts. And I always heard people say, like, oh, you need stronger core. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, my abs are pretty strong, but I didn't realize what that meant. Like, the whole core is like your whole trunk.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I just needed to, like, strengthen the back of the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow it's kind of addicting. Like, the deadlift is addicting to see, like, how strong can you get? Like, how much weight can you lift?
The quantifiable thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of started pushing it. We have this friend who's Canadian named Berto. He had this personal challenge of deadlifting 2.5 times body weight for him, so it would be 500 pounds, and climbing V10 in a day.
Damn.
And we were like, wow, that's a badass challenge.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, what would be my equivalent? That would be 250 pounds and a V10. And I was like, I don't think I can do 250. Like, I think I would have to gain some mass to do it, and I don't really want to do that. But for sure, I can go for double body weight. And then once I did that, it was like, it didn't feel that bad. So I was curious, like, how much more I could do.
Yeah. Did you get it?
I did 235
nice.
For my max.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you weigh 100 pounds?
I weigh 100 pounds. Yeah.
And how tall are you?
5 feet.
5 feet?
Yeah.
100 pounds, pulling 235?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Is that something are you still chasing that goal a little bit?
I mean, not really. Like, in my training, I'll kind of taper and then just, like, deadlift for maintenance. I'm not really, like, pushing the numbers. But, like, right now, I'm just consistently kind of, like, lifting 200 or 205.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about the V10 thing with the deadlift day?
So, I haven't quite. Like, I have done some V9s and lifted 200.
Which do you do first? Do you go climb
I
first?
like to climb first. Yeah, because I feel like if I lift first, it takes away some of my power. Yeah.
Maybe do like a fingery technical hard climb.
Yeah.
And then go deadlift. That's awesome.
My husband this year, though, he did his own Berto challenge, which was to lift 300 and climb V10 in a day. And
sick.
He did that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's funny. It's probably counterintuitive to some listeners, but I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, my lower back, I can't deadlift. And I had the exact same experience as you. I had low back pain even like as an 18-year-old. I think I just had a imbalanced or weak core.
Yeah.
And deadlifting, same thing. It's helped me immensely.
Yeah.
And do you think it's helped your climbing?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, especially with kind of like really hard undercling type moves where you're just like smearing and you're like coming into something.
And standing
it's
tall on your
basically
feet.
like that same motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do. I think it's helped my pinch strength. Like my hands are stronger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just holding the bar. Do you do any isometric holds or anything with that, or?
I don't actually.
Okay.
No. There's a lot of people around town who are, and it seems pretty awesome.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your protocol, or maybe just how many days a week do you typically deadlift? If you're in like more of a training phase.
2
Okay.
days a week. Yeah. If it's just a maintenance phase, it's 1 day a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. What are iron dragons?
It is a Bruce Lee exercise where you're either on the bench or on the floor. It's kind of like doing a full lever up, like onto your shoulders and then all the way back down.
Okay.
With straight legs.
So you're laying on your back.
You're laying on your
Are
back.
you holding the bench
You
at
can
all?
hold the bench.
Okay.
Yeah.
So arms down by your sides, holding the bench, and you're lifting your legs all the way up to vertical.
Yeah.
Just
and
getting
then
up
back
onto your
down. And you
shoulders.
don't ever touch the ground. Like,
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're pretty hard.
Yeah. I think your comment on your blog was like, I'm super sore from iron dragons, but hopefully that'll go away or something.
Yeah.
Do you think those have helped?
Those have helped. I haven't really continued them too much, but that year for sure, yeah, they got to the point where I was like, oh, I'm not sore anymore. I should probably like add weights to my ankles or something. Yeah.
Did you?
I did.
Okay. Gotcha. It seems like that one, you kind of get to a point where that's probably hard to keep progressing it
Yeah,
that way.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. I'll find a video to those and
Yeah.
add them in the show notes or something. And then there's a few other training things, and I'm just curious. I'd love to dig into a couple of questions here, but also maybe get your take on what of the things that you've done over the years you think you've pointed to as the things that have helped you the most, or things that you'd recommend, or things you plan to continue doing. But you had a comment. It sounds like you were training for a specific route or boulder or goal. You said, my one arm hangs got better, as did my campusing endurance and pinch strength. And so that was kind of interesting. I'd love to kind of break down all of those. You mentioned the pinch strength with the bar. Were you doing anything else for pinches?
Like we have these pinch blocks that I was adding weight onto.
So you're just like basically deadlifting a pinch with weight added?
That really helps too.
Okay.
But it would be interesting if I was curious if the deadlift would make me tired for those. And so I was like trying them after deadlifting sometimes. And for sure, and I'm right-handed, and my right thumb would fatigue out faster than my left thumb.
Interesting.
On those deadlifting days.
Huh.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
You think you're just using your right thumb more on the deadlift pulls?
Yeah, and I guess just in general being, your dominant hand, you're using it more. And I think, it's better at like very specific kind of like tactile stuff, whereas like your non-dominant hand is kind of like the dumb one that maybe is just like a little stronger. I don't know. Yeah.
Huh. Got you. Cool. That's interesting. What about the one arm hangs?
One arm hangs. Those have always kind of been like a goal and have always been really hard. But
to get to body weight?
Yeah. And I've never really been super consistent with them. So that year I was like trying to be very consistent and having to start taking weight off, like 15 pounds off and then 10 pounds and then 7 pounds and then 5. And then I did get to body weight.
Nice.
And that was an interesting thing also. I was stronger on the left arm than I was on the right.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's the same with my lock-offs.
Huh.
I can lock off farther.
And your hand strength's actually stronger.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah. For me, my lock-off strength is better on my left, but my left hand is definitely weaker.
Right.
Yeah. That's cool. Was that like a 4-finger open? What kind of hold? And were you doing different grips?
On the 20 mil open hand, 4-finger. Yeah.
Were you training other grips with the assisted one-arm stuff?
I wasn't.
Okay.
No. But then as far as like talking about the hands being stronger, this year when I started my training assessment just to see where I was on the half crimp test, I was considering like any failure, like a failure to maintain at all.
Strict form. And what would happen is my left pointer finger would go straight. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the first point of failure.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you actively training the half crimp?
Yeah, I actually am just finishing up 12 weeks of training, and I was doing a lot of half crimp.
What does your protocol look like?
It was, it had 3 weeks of rest built into it, so every 4th week was like a taper, kind of a rest week, and then I would start again, and it would be like harder, a little bit different.
3 weeks of training, 1 week taper, repeat that 3 times?
Yeah.
Were you doing kind of repeaters or max hangs? Or?
Repeaters, max hangs.
You're doing both?
Well, it would be like, and I guess I shouldn't really say repeaters because it wasn't like 7 on 3 off. It would be like, I guess kind of more max hangs. It would be max hang for 10 seconds and then take 2 minutes off. So yeah, mostly just max hangs.
Okay.
On the half crimp and then on variable grips on my next set. So like the first 3 weeks was just strict half crimp.
Okay.
And then the next set was half crimp and then other holds too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Was that just because half crimp was your top priority? Or was that just the program that you found?
I don't know. That's just what I did.
Cool. Yeah. Nice. Then one last question on that. When you got to open hand 4-finger with body weight, what did your training look like working up towards that? Do you remember?
I don't even really remember. If I, I write everything down.
Okay.
I don't have my book with me. I could tell you.
But, okay. Awesome. Yeah, let me know and I'll make a note in the show notes. Do you remember though, were you doing like kind of similar max hang sort of style?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Right on. Do you think all that is it helping your climbing?
I think so. It's interesting. I've never done 12 weeks before. This is definitely the longest. And it's funny with training, like you tend to feel all over the place. Like you can feel super strong and you're recovering and you're resting. You can feel exhausted and just like totally beat down. I definitely went through all of that. And right now, though, I think I feel like pretty darn strong. And it's been interesting, like climbing for so long, barring any injury. It's like I feel like I've just consistently gotten better over the years, which is really nice.
That's awesome.
So we'll see. Yeah, I'm going to the Red River Gorge on Sunday for about a month. We'll see how it goes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions. Were you mixing in climbing while you're doing all that training stuff?
For this
last 12
cycle,
weeks?
Yeah, I would give myself one free day of climbing. I was calling it Sunday Funday.
Nice.
I would just like go out and do whatever I wanted. But then built into my training would be days outside.
Okay.
Too, because I like the idea of training on rock as opposed to just training on plastic.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to go through this like break-in period of like getting your skin adjusted to the rock again.
Got you. How do you prepare for a trip to the Red River Gorge when you're in Bishop?
The tread wall's really nice for that. But then, endurance is like the easiest thing to get.
Okay.
Power's always harder. And so it was a lot of like building the power. Not really doing 4x4s per se, but like boulder circuits, bouldering up to like V10 and doing it multiple times. So like, from starting at V5 going all the way to V10, doing each problem or like 6 problems of each basically, and then like tapering back down.
On like a home wall or?
On a home wall or outside.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That sounds hard.
It's hard. It's interesting because, I started just kind of building up to that. It was like those first 3 weeks, I'm not bouldering up to V10. Maybe I'm just bouldering like at my base, like up to V7, V8, and then just like slowly able to like build that capacity for such high output and power. By the end of it, like my last bouldering session, it was like, I bouldered up to like V11 in the gym after doing like 18 other problems.
Sick.
So you're like, well, I think I feel good. It could just be soft setting. I have no idea.
That logistically, that seems pretty tricky to do outside. Where do you go do that circuit?
So, like the tablelands are kind of optimal for it, especially like the upper SAD zone because it's very concentrated.
Like the ice caves area.
Like the ice caves area, or even where the little anti-hero roof is. There's some like 8s in there. There's like some 7s or some 6s. So you could like find these little clusters and spend like 15 minutes there, do all of that, and then move on like to the ice caves or something. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
One other question I had about your training from that same comment, campus endurance. What are you doing with campusing?
So this is also an interesting thing that I've learned recently, in that it's the speed in which you're able to execute your power that is really important. Like being able to like fire those synapses really quickly as opposed to like building up to it. So like campusing really quickly, like every single rung on the slope runs as fast as possible. And then like double dynos, trying to do them like really quickly. Yeah. And then 1-3-5-7 has always been really hard for me for some reason.
How tall did you say you were again?
5 feet. Yeah. And that's what everyone says. They're like, yeah, but you're short. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not buying that as like an excuse. I don't know.
Good for you. That's awesome.
So just like also consistently trying to do that.
So what is I guess the part that really caught my interest is the campusing endurance. Like most people don't put those two words together.
Right, I know.
What did that look like?
I don't know. That's something I'm going to have to look in my notebook and tell you. But I'm pretty sure it's like almost like doing it at like a systems wall. Like maybe I was having my feet on and just going up and down, up and down, up and down for like 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. Yeah.
Do you remember with that comment, with those 3 ingredients, what specific thing you had in your mind that you were training for?
I think it was something at the Delta Wall in Pine Creek.
Okay. Do you remember what specifically?
A route that my husband put up called Love Dog.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. No rest, just kind of like full on crimping all the way for like 60 feet. Not very tall, but enough that you're like, wow, kind of need to be on at like V6 the whole way.
Got it.
Which is kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you end up doing it?
I didn't. I fell at the top.
Damn it.
Quite a bit.
Okay.
Then stopped climbing on it. I don't know, got like distracted with other things.
Yeah.
But if that was 2018, actually, that's not totally true because it was 2019 I was climbing on that route. So 2018, it probably would have been for 2 routes that I did do. One on the Delta Wall called Shard Attack. Yeah. And then one in Tuolumne called Top Gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get to that. That's a perfect segue because those are both 514.
Yeah.
Right? And you also, like you said, you did a ton of bouldering. You bouldered up to V10. It sounds like V11 in the gym. You put up a new route in Owens, a route called Pretty Strong, I'm assuming because you had someone following you around filming this whole time. And you did like a crazy link up of Astroman and the Rostrum with Hannah Hall. Like that's kind of a wild and sporadic year. I mean, you it sounds like your whole career you've been a multidisciplined climber and you live in the perfect place for it. But I'd love to get into how you think about structuring your climbing year. Are you someone that has seasons of bouldering, has seasons of route climbing? Do you mix and match? How do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. Seasonally.
Okay.
Especially living in Bishop because prime bouldering season is like the fall and winter, you know? So it gives me a pretty good chance to like have other objectives outside of bouldering. I really love climbing in the high country and, you know, you can't when it's cold. So it's usually
you did something on the Hulk too.
Did something on the Hulk. So that's usually like a summer thing, like getting up into the alpine rock climbing. And then,
was that Airstream?
Airstream.
Like 13AB?
13B.
Like Sick.
Yeah, so it's like if I want, I can tailor it around like bouldering and then alpine climbing season. And then fit stuff in between. Like whatever the smaller objectives might be.
Got you.
Yeah.
Are you with like your bouldering? I mean, that's kind of perfect. And you mentioned earlier that you've been improving really consistently. And it seems like a theme among climbers that are able to do that and have good longevity is they're switching disciplines, they're switching rock styles and stuff like that. And it sounds like kind of a perfect thing to go from bouldering to maybe shoulder season where you're sport climbing more to these like alpine things and then kind of come back to bouldering at the end of the year. When you're bouldering, do you have just a bouldering goal or are you bouldering in a way to prepare you for the next goal?
It's kind of both. It's like I've always... Like, I love bouldering. It's really fun. It's kind of how I really started climbing. So I grew up in the Southeast, and it's very small out there, you know? But in a way, it's like bouldering's always kind of been like a practice for me for route climbing. Because like I said, it's always the power. That is like the hardest thing to get. And so I feel like, you know, having like a good bouldering season will help me with my power for the rest of the year. And then in that, I'm like, oh, maybe there's like some particular boulders too that I would like to do this season. Yeah.
And then when it sounds like you're just finishing a 12-week like dedicated training cycle where you're not as worried about performing in these other modalities. Do you think of the winter as your like main off season generally, or how do you think about when to train?
It depends. In the past, we've also done quite a bit of traveling in the winter, like going to Europe for sport climbing, something like that. So if we're not traveling and we're at home, then typically it's because I have some idea in my mind about what I want to do later on in the year that I kind of want to be home to train for.
Over the winter?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it just like the one time a year where you're really head down training? And
yeah, pretty much. And then I'll just do like maintenance stuff throughout the year.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm really curious about some of the fast ascents you've done on big walls and some of these link ups like the Astroman Rostrum thing. It seems like you've done a lot of free in a day sort of stuff. And then of course in Pretty Strong you just mentioned this earlier, you were on the wall for 6 days for that thing. So how do you think about that? Do you prefer that free in a day style and going fast?
That's pretty amazing to be able to do something in a day, and it takes a lot of the like toiling out of it.
The hauling and
and that stuff just like wears you down, you know. And just even being up on the wall, as like awesome as it is, like it starts to get tiring. So I think it's a pretty awesome style to just be able to do something in a day, something big in a day.
That's badass.
It's pretty badass.
Is that something you've moved towards, or have you always done that?
I feel like I've kind of always done that. Yeah. And I don't know why. I think it's just like the crowd I was around, like when I first got out to Yosemite, you know, like that's kind of what was happening. Like Dean Potter was way into it. And that was like influencing our whole group of like what we wanted to do. And also it's like you're not going to encounter as many parties and have to deal with like all of their logistics too. You can just blast through them all, which helps because as climbing is more popular, Yosemite is getting really, really popular and the walls are getting really crowded. And that in itself can kind of like turn you away. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to go up there. There's like 7 parties on it right now. Yeah.
And that's sort of case if you are doing a fast ascent, like an in-a-day ascent, do you wait and come back a different time, or do you just like, hey, we can climb past all these people?
Yeah, I kind of just climb through them. Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about this link up thing that you did.
That was really fun.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's kind of like an old school Yosemite hard man, hard woman kind of objective.
Yeah.
It had been on my mind for a while, but both climbs are rated 11C, not that hard considering, but it's Yosemite. It's very varied. There's a lot of wide climbing. Like, it's kind of a burly day. It's about 1,800 feet of climbing.
And this is the Rostrum and Astroman.
Rostrum and Astroman.
Yeah. Did you guys both free everything?
My partner fell entering the harding slot on Astroman and then higher up on the Rostrum, but
Okay.
she did really good.
Sick.
Yeah, I don't know. So I wanted to do it, and she's the perfect partner. Kind of call her like a little suffer bunny, because she's quite a bit younger than me. She's like 11 or 12 years younger than me. She's really gung-ho. Also, like, an all-around climber, can do it all, and kind of just game for, like, big days.
Yeah.
Getting kind of knocked around, and she's my suffer bunny.
So, I mean, we've talked about your resume, so that thing's well within your ability to just go and do it, it seems like. Did you do any specific prep for that?
Not really.
Okay, just showed up and did it.
And it was in the fall, so typically I'd spent like all summer, I was like climbing at the Hulk. And I like to do that stuff in a day too, like walk in from the car, climb the route, walk out.
Nice.
It's really good, like, fitness building. So I've been doing that a little bit. Just climbing other, like, multi-pitch stuff, big stuff, guiding a little bit that summer, like, out at the Hulk. So I felt, like, pretty in shape for it. Yeah.
What is the approach like to the Hulk?
I consider it like the approach to the Diamond.
Okay.
Something similar to that. It's about 4.5, 5 miles in. You gain a few thousand feet in elevation.
That's a big day.
It's a big day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the style that you did Airstream?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big ass day.
It's a big day.
That's super cool. Do you have any goals for fast ascents, linkups, stuff like that? Or is it just like, oh, that sounds fun?
I don't know. Actually, in Red Rocks, I would like to do Rainbow Wall and Cloud Tower in a day.
Sick.
That's kind of the only one on my mind right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I would, doing father time in a day, I think would be awesome. I really like to do that, really. That would take a lot of work, in that I'm like, maybe it's almost even easier just to do it wall style, but I don't know.
Got it. So, we didn't, I don't think I even asked that. Did you end up going back to that thing?
I haven't gone back.
It sounds like you plan to.
Yeah.
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 Cool. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, so that year, actually, we had climbed on it in the spring also.
Okay.
Just to get familiar with it, we spent a few days up there. We didn't get to the top. We just worked on those 513 pitches and then like the 510 after it.
Okay.
So we didn't really know.
Just go ground up on it?
Yeah. We didn't really know what was going to be past it. Which made Nina's send of those two 512s even more impressive, because she on-sighted them.
Sick. One of them looked gripping.
Super gripping.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with like weird Bombay STEMmy weird style, like, it's really hard. And that's the one she comments, like, she lost a bunch of skin on it. Like, she was outside of it, like, bear hugging this thing, grunting, like, really giving it her all.
Yeah.
And then like pulled it off in the end, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, it looks really insecure and pretty run out.
Yeah.
And pretty low angle.
Yeah.
Is it like objectively dangerous or risky at all, or just really intimidating?
Probably both. Some of the gear is not that great. And if you know how to climb that style, you can get in there and it feels pretty secure, and you can get good gear. But if you're like gripped and just muscling your way through it, like, you're not able to take your time placing the gear, and could be kind of dangerous for sure.
Got it. When do you plan to go back to that?
I'd like to go this fall.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm trying to get my husband to go with me. He keeps teasing me that, maybe you'll rope gun me up there. And then I get all excited and I'm like, so we're going to go? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, God, you're killing me.
Yeah. Ben ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah, for people that don't know, I mean, he's a total boss.
Yeah.
He's bouldered V12, climbed 514, so he's,
Yeah.
I'm sure he's capable. Is he going to try to free it too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to do the same thing, kind of go ground up and focus on those crux pitches and work them out?
Yeah, because the bottom, it's 10 pitches down there, 2 pitches, 512, 5'11", and all the rest is 5'10". And it's low angle. It's not that physical of climbing. It's just very delicate. You can get through that stuff really quickly. And then, there's this nice ledge at the top of pitch 10 where you can set up a portaledge and just kind of hang out and do like day missions up to those crux pitches and work them out and then come back down.
Mm-hmm. Got you.
Yeah.
In the film, you were wearing women's Mura Velcros.
Yeah.
Is that your go-to on that style?
I love those shoes.
Okay.
I like them because you can just take them off really easily at the belay as opposed to a lace-up. And I don't know, those shoes just work for me on all terrain.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my next question. So they're the go-to.
They're the go-to.
Nice.
Yeah.
What if you have to do toe hooking, bicycles, stuff like that?
Yeah, they're not that great for toe hooking.
Do you have another, something else in your quiver for that sort of thing?
The Butora Acro.
Okay.
I love those for toe hooking.
Okay.
And heel hooking, actually. They're like the best.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll find those and link to them. I can't even picture those ones. I don't think I've tried them. But
Butora is interesting too because they offer like a narrow and a wide fit.
Okay.
And you can get half sizes.
Nice.
So you could get one shoe that's like 33 and then the other one 33 and a half.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
That's amazing. I don't think any other company's doing that.
No, they don't.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Huh. You have to order them through their website for that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd love to bounce to some of the stuff from the Q&A last night.
Sure.
Because that was super fun. So we watched the film. Afterwards, you took questions for a little bit. And there's a few things that really stood out to me. Before I even thought we were going to sit down and do this, I was like, ooh, that's good. And I wrote a little note. Someone was asking you what you tell yourself if you get into a situation where you're trying a route and you're intimidated by it. Either a new project or something that you haven't been able to send. You know, how do you navigate that self-doubt, intimidation, whatever? And you said that you have this mantra that you repeat to yourself. I know who I am and I know what I'm doing. I really like that.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, that actually came to me in 2018, climbing on that route Top Gun.
Okay.
I climbed on that route quite a bit over 3 summers. And it's super conditions dependent, blah, 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 like all the things. And I was getting really close on it that year. And you know how it is, like, when you really want to send something, you start to get nervous. Mm-hmm. And that usually doesn't help you, like, whatsoever. It just makes you, like, too shaky for it. And then you have, like, all these doubts. And I didn't want to go through that at all. And I remember, like, hanging on the rope, like, in the middle of the crux, kind of like starting to see myself go down like this dark rabbit hole of like doubt and like, oh, poor me, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? We're some of the like most luckiest people to be able to like just come out here and climb. This like view is amazing. Like this is what I love to do. Like I know myself. I know that I can do this. I know what I'm doing. Like I just have to do it. Just let myself do it. And my next go, for sure, I'm like climbing through, I'm setting up for the crux, and I just kept telling myself that. And before I knew it, I was like at the top of the route.
Huh.
And I was like, you know what? That shit works.
That's awesome.
Because it was like, it didn't allow for any of that other mental chatter to come into play.
Uh-huh.
I didn't need to figure out the beta. I knew what the beta was, you know? I just kept saying that, and I was just executing it.
So you're on red point, literally just churning that thought in your mind.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then, you know, a similar thing for, like, on-sighting, too.
Okay.
Not that, like, you're trying to block out, like, the thought of, like, how am I going to do this move? What's coming next? But it's more of the thought of, like, if I start to get scared or start to get uneasy about it, I'm like, you know what? You're very skilled in this. You know what you're doing. You can do this. And I'll just tell myself that little mantra, and it'll calm me down, and I can just climb right through.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you get that from somewhere, or did it just pop into your head?
It just popped into my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
That's going to be a really successful bumper sticker. Maybe we'll put it on a shirt and sell it on the podcast.
Yeah.
With your permission. We can work out a deal.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to steal it. So another question that came up that I wrote down that was really interesting. A guy was asking you, I think specifically he was a boulderer, you know, climbing V5. And he was picking your brain for, what should I do? I want to get better. What should I do? and you asked him a few questions. You're like, are you plateaued? How long have you been climbing? And it sounds like he's a relatively new climber, climbing V5, still getting better from climbing, just wants to expedite the process. But your takeaway was like, just climb. For anyone that's been climbing less than 5 years, I think you'd been climbing for 3 or something.
Yeah.
Just climb. So I guess the question that popped into my head is, knowing that you have done a ton of training and still do a ton of training, is that kind of what your progression looked like? Did you just climb?
Yeah, pretty much. I've been climbing for 24 years, so it's been a long run.
Yeah. You started at like age 15?
I started at 16.
16?
Yeah, and I grew up in Louisiana, so climbing was kind of few and far between. There was a gym about 45 minutes away, and then some friends and I built like a home gym. Nice. Basically, we were just climbing all the time. And training wasn't even really a thing back then. So it wasn't like this thing we were faced with of like how to improve your finger strength or whatever. But I do see it with a lot of people around home in Bishop that haven't been climbing for that long. And they progress up to a certain grade very quickly. Like V5 is not that easy. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty good to get up to like V5, V6 within 2 years, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, but climbing's hard, And so breaking past that, it's going to take like more technique, more understanding of how to move your body. And you're not going to get that in training. You're only going to get that in climbing. Mm-hmm. And unless you're some anomaly, which there aren't that many of us, it's going to take a little while. You have to put in the time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I really do think just climbing and climbing a lot of different styles, a lot of different rock, is like the best thing that a newer climber can do for themselves.
Mm-hmm. You kind of spoke to that with your answer as well. You said the same thing, switching it up, doing different things. You're like the prime example of that. And it seems like, in my mind, that's likely what is keeping you healthy and allowing you to have such good longevity and consistent progress. But I'm curious, do you think that it's easy to see how your bouldering would help, your sport climbing would help your big wall climbing? Do you think that filters back the other way at all?
Not really.
Okay. Do you think it's all made you just a better climber, though?
I think so.
Okay.
Like, I can't say that, trad climbing makes you a better boulderer. Because usually you lose power, once you stop kind of bouldering or stop, training for that in particularly.
Yeah.
But I have found that, techniques in offwidth climbing or wide climbing has helped me with, tufa climbing.
Huh.
I can sneak some funny rests. I can get knee bars where, maybe other people aren't seeing them or wouldn't have thought about it.
What else? Like shoulder scums?
Shoulder scums for sure.
Huh.
Chicken wing rests.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. That's cool.
That's been cool. And then, I don't even think really sport climbing helps with bouldering. Bouldering is such a powerful kind of thing, but I do think different techniques and especially learning really good footwork helps with bouldering, as opposed to just being able to muscle your way through, because you see a lot of people that are really strong but their footwork sucks, and you're eventually they're either going to get hurt or they're not going to be able to keep progressing because they don't know how to use their legs.
Is there anything that you wish you'd known from all this time training? Anything that you wish you'd started doing earlier?
And I was thinking about this last night about that guy's question. I wish I would have said oppositional or conditioning would be in your favor too. Because like I said, I suffered from low back pain for years.
Yeah.
And if I had started lifting weights earlier, I could have mitigated that long ago. But climbers have terrible shoulders. Typically, our posture's really bad.
Yeah, we're all rounded, hunched
We're all
forward.
rounded over. If you can bench press, do your push-ups, lift some heavy stuff, it's going to be better, not only for climbing, but it just helps us age better, It's going to just set us up better for longer.
Got it. So let's bounce back to that, because I skipped over that, and I was hoping to come back to it. So you've probably tried a lot of different things in training. Are there any key ingredients that you kind of come back to that you found have been the most important? Or you just mentioned bench press. What other kind of stuff are you doing?
Overhead press, deadlift. Those are the three for sure.
Will you focus on bench press and overhead press at the same time, or kind of cycle them?
Maybe I'll cycle them.
Yeah.
One day will be bench, and then the other day will be overhead press.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're training twice a week.
Yeah.
And you're deadlifting both days.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you doing your fingerboard program both days too?
That's what I was going to say. Like for this 12-week program, I'm only doing 1 day of fingerboarding.
Oh, interesting.
And I think the fingerboarding for maintaining healthy fingers is really important.
Yeah. That's another, similar to the deadlifting thing.
Yeah.
That's something that isn't necessarily intuitive when you're getting into it. People are afraid of hurting themselves on the fingerboard. And I'm like, no, it's like making yourself bomb proof.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you start doing that?
Fingerboarding?
Uh-huh.
I bought my first hangboard in like 1998. And again, it was like training wasn't that big of a thing. No one really understood how it worked or the best way to go about it. And I just had it in the hallway, and I just remember doing pull-ups on it all the time. I didn't know how to use it, and then later on I got in like the Metolius like fingerboard workout and started doing that. And then probably once I moved to Yosemite, which was 2006, I actually really started training on the fingerboard pretty consistently. Because I found that I was kind of losing a little bit in finger strength just climbing on cracks all the time, you know? Yeah.
So thinking about it kind of is maintenance even when you're doing a lot of crack climbing?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you dealt with any major injuries?
I broke an ankle bouldering in 2014. That had me out for about 7 weeks. I sprained the other ankle in 2016 bouldering, which had me out not as long as a broken ankle, but it was really bad. It was about 3-4 weeks of pain. And then I've had a few finger injuries, and those have all been from climbing when it was too cold. Yeah.
Interesting. And is that, I imagine you still did a good warm-up. Is that like letting yourself get too
and
cold
it was like
between tries, or?
Like the last one, it was a high of 36. Even in the sun, like it was brutal. Had done a really good warm up, felt pretty good, and there wasn't like an incident. It wasn't like, oh, that was a pop. It was like I warmed up, went to try a project, tried it a few times, didn't succeed, went, did something else, then went to another project, and when I went to pull on to that project, I was like, there's like an ache in my hand. And I started feeling around, and I was like, that's like my A2. Like, it's hurt. But like, I don't know when I did that. And I was just like, it's interesting thinking back on like 2 previous finger injuries. Both times it was like a similar thing where it was like, it was just really cold. And I had done everything quote unquote correctly. Like I had warmed up. I felt pretty good. And there was never a specific incident. It was just like, there's like a thing now.
Damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything differently now on those cold days, or are you just avoiding those
I just avoid them, actually. Okay. Yeah. A friend wanted to go out to a project one day, and it was like 40 degrees in town and just howling wind, and I was like, I'm not going. Like, if I've learned anything, I just know I shouldn't climb on these very, very cold days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are ideal bouldering conditions for you?
For me, like 55 and sunny. Okay. Seems pretty nice.
Climbing
in the shade.
Yeah.
And dry. I have very sweaty skin. So if there's like any humidity around, it's not that good for me in the cold because I have a weird metabolism where I sweat a lot when it's cold. Like all my pits will soak through like my jacket kind of thing. And I'll start to leave like moist handprints all over the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange.
Like clammy cold sort of thing.
Cold.
Damn. Yeah. I felt that myself before, and it's really frustrating.
It's frustrating.
Like, temps are perfect. What the hell's going on?
You're like, why do I suck right now? I'm so moist.
Do you have any favorite skincare stuff?
I use Rhino Skin quite a bit.
Okay.
I used to anti-hydral.
Yeah.
And then Rhino Skin came out, and since that I haven't really used anti-hydral at all.
How do you use that? Do you use the dry or the performance?
Repair and the performance.
Okay.
So like after a day out climbing and my skin gets like a little torn up, I'll use the repair that night. And then I won't use anything for a few days, and then the day before I'm gonna go climbing, maybe I'll use the performance. And a lot of sanding, and it's been good. That stuff's been really good.
Nice. Yeah, I like it too. I'm good friends with those guys. And
cool.
I mentioned this on Jonathan's because he brought it up too, but I want to, the disclaimer is that I do some work for them, so I want to put that out there so it's totally clear, but I manage their Amazon stuff. So
cool.
But yeah, I do that because I love their stuff and I love those guys, so that's cool. My friend Jess wanted to ask a question last night, and I think you guys wrapped up like right when she threw her hand up.
Okay.
But I figured I'd ask it because I think it's a good one. She's a relatively newer climber. She's been climbing a few years, and she's dealing with her first like stubborn tendonitis elbow issue. And I think she's kind of freaked out that like if she takes time off and deals with this thing, that she's like never going to climb hard again. So I'm curious, what was your experience with those finger injuries? Were you able to come back stronger? And, you know, what would you say to a newer climber who's freaked out because they have their first injury and have to take some time away from climbing?
Tendonitis is a weird thing. I know people, and I feel really lucky because I've never had elbow tendonitis. But my husband will get it chronically if he's just like pulling down too much and not doing any like bench pressing or push-ups or like wrist stuff. But what I've noticed is even if they take time off and they come back, let's say a month later, it's still there. Like it hasn't been addressed. The thing that's irritating it has stopped, but like the tendonitis itself hasn't had any like attention. So like figuring out what to do as far as like oppositional strengthening or conditioning, I think is probably the best thing to do for it. As far as like my finger injuries, the protocol for that has changed over the years. So when I got my first finger injury, it was over like 10 years ago. And it was the deal of like, take time off, don't do anything.
Yeah.
And it took forever to heal. Like when I started climbing again, I was like, well, it's still like it's weak now.
It's kind of that same thing as the tendonitis
Totally.
in a way. Like you haven't remodeled the tissue.
Yeah, totally. And so the last finger injury I got, right, all of the literature, all of the testing was showing that like you need to kind of irritate that tissue in order for the collagen fibers to lay down correctly. And the best way to do that is through hangboarding. And so it was like, I took off 2 weeks when it first happened, took off 2 weeks, and then started hangboarding and having to take weight off. So I was like hanging on the 20 mil half crimp with like minus 15 pounds, and then just like slowly working my way back up to body weight and then adding weight. And I was lucky in that like right after that injury, we actually did a trip to Font.
Okay.
And everyone was like, Font's the best place for tweaky fingers. Like, you'll see. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what that means. And it's true. Like, I only encountered one hold that whole time where I was like, that didn't feel that good. But everything else, totally fine.
Yeah. Sandstone bouldering.
Sandstone bouldering. It's all open-handed slopers. Yeah. Not tweaky at all.
Yeah.
Can be hard on the elbows from like all of the squeezing. But anyway, before we left for the trip, I was like body weight plus 15 pounds, which my max hang is quite a bit more than that. It's like body weight plus 70 pounds. So having to go from like very strong to like taking 15 pounds off to finally back up to like 15 pounds added, it's a pretty extreme difference, but it really helped my finger. Like I came back totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. One thing I want to throw in from my own experience that hopefully will help somebody out there, but I found it really helpful I kind of did a similar thing. I trained, I think, just like open fingers first, but then once I got up to where I was feeling relatively strong on like 2-finger pockets and really open hand grips, I wanted to train crimps again because I wanted to be able to crimp, and that still hurt. And I actually trained on a fingerboard in a full crimp position on a bad hold, standing on a bathroom scale.
Okay, yeah.
And took like half my body weight, and literally started with like minus 80 pounds or something, and worked it all the way back up to body weight. And my experience is right in line with what you were talking about, just like really feeling bomb-proof from doing that. So that's another thing people can try.
Yeah. But yeah, if she's having like elbow tendonitis stuff, maybe she should take a little bit of time off. Like, I don't think she should take a whole month off or anything. Yeah. Just stop the like immediate irritation of it and look into like whatever the oppositional training is. If it's like golfer's elbow or tennis elbow, like what are the weight things she can do? bench press, I think, is really helpful with elbow tendonitis, amazingly. Same with like push-ups, of course. Yeah.
And you were just miming like a rotation,
like wrist rotations, where it's like it's top heavy with weight, and you either go, thumbs up and go down clockwise or counterclockwise, but you don't lift the weight back up. You like bring the weight back up with your other hand, and then.
So for listeners, you can do this with like a frying pan, where you're like you're holding it out, your elbow's bent at a 90, and your fist is out in front of you, thumb pointed up, and you're holding the frying pan so it's pointed straight up, and you slowly lower it either direction.
Right.
Probably a good idea to do like a set of 10 of each.
Yeah.
And lower it. Do the slow eccentric, and then use your other hand to help it back up to vertical, and then do the next one.
Yeah.
I found those really helpful for my own elbow stuff too. Cool. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wish you'd known, and this can go beyond climbing, anything you wish you'd known when you were 20?
God, that we're all so insecure as young people. It's amazing. And it's really like as you get older, you get more comfortable with yourself. And I guess I wish I understood that when I was younger. Just in general, like speaking in front of public seemed so terrifying, or having to and I was a shy kid, so maybe it just kind of like overlapped from that, but like having to go ask someone like in another language for directions, that'd be like terrifying, but it's only because like I was just such a squirrely person. It's almost like if I had known that mantra earlier on, like I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, I would have been better.
Did you know who you were and what you were doing?
I mean, but that's the thing, not really. It's like you think you do. That's the thing. It's like you think you do. You think you know yourself, but then you're super insecure. And I have a lot of younger friends, not that they're all insecure, but they're like in their mid to late 20s, and like they're just all over the place, and they're like flailing with certain things, and I can just see it so clearly, like, oh, you're just like really insecure and you don't really know what you're doing right now. Just be patient with yourself. You'll figure it out. Yeah.
Cool. How old are you now? Late 30s?
I just turned 40.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's go age 30. Is there anything you wish you'd known at age 30?
30. Yeah. Not to climb when it was too cold.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The finger
I
injury
think that's
thing.
when it started, that kind of stuff.
Had you just moved to Bishop?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So you're in Bishop. It's cold. You're psyched.
Yep.
Yeah. Got you. Have you seen that trend with other people, or is
I
that
have,
just
for
you
sure.
have? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And if it's not like fingers, it's an elbow or a shoulder, and it's always like a tendon type of situation. Yeah. Because it's cold and we're like tensed up, even if we've warmed up. The in between, it's like you are tensing and tightening your muscles because you're like getting cold, and then you like try to execute, and I just don't think it's that good. It's clearly not that good.
Yeah. I'll say one more thing about my finger injury, just hoping that it helps somebody, but I had a similar experience. I was actually in Bishop 3 years ago when I got that injury, and I'd been crimping a ton that trip and having a really successful trip. But what I kind of think was the impetus for the injury was, or the root cause of the injury was, I did a lot of crimping in the morning and tried something really hard, and then I sat for like 3 hours, and I didn't do a good job of warming back up. Yeah. Because it was sunny, I felt comfortable, but it was cold. And then, end of the day, the sun drops behind the mountains up there in the buttermilks, and like conditions are amazing. Right. And everyone started trying something hard, and I just like threw myself at it. Yeah. And then the next day was like, oh, something's wrong. Yeah. And same as you, it didn't pop. I was like, yeah, I really underestimated that and made it a lot worse, because I was like, that's kind of sore, but. Right. Yeah. In hindsight, it was like a sharper warning pain. Right. That I should have paid more attention to.
I also think dehydration plays a little bit into it, because it's cold. Maybe we're not drinking as much. Sure. So like on those colder days, the ones that I am going out climbing where it's like not super extreme, but it is still a bit cold, like I just bring warm water or hot tea, and I find myself drinking more. Yeah.
Do you do electrolytes?
Yeah.
What do you do for that?
Actually, we'll either use like Cliff product electrolytes, because that's what we get. Sometimes I make my own. And it's warm water, lime juice, and sea salt. And a little bit of honey sometimes.
That sounds pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you just did a master's in nutrition, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked about your climbing. You do a bunch of other stuff too. You and your husband just opened Bishop Cowork.
That's right.
A co-working space in Bishop. You do a lot of writing. You have a bunch of articles on Climbing Magazine, the nutrition thing. Yeah, what does all that look like for you now? What does your work look like, I guess?
The Cowork is nice. It kind of runs itself.
Okay.
There's an app on your phone. You like log into the website, you become a member, you get the app on your phone, and you can enter with this electronic key 24/7.
Nice.
So we don't really need to be there, which is nice. But Ben has his photo studio out of there, and then I have my nutrition office out of there also.
I don't know if we mentioned that. Ben's a professional
Ben's
photographer.
a professional photographer.
Uh-huh. And are you working with clients for nutrition?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Climbers or anybody? Or?
Anybody. I do some remote work, but then it's mostly locals. And that runs the gamut from like athletes, not necessarily climbers, but like endurance runners or skiers, to people that are like trying to manage a chronic illness. And that's been really interesting. I really like that work.
I mean, we could probably have multiple whole podcasts on the nutrition thing. Are there any, I'd love to ask though, and feel free to punt on this question, but are there any key takeaways that you would put out there for climbers?
Yeah, two things. And I mentioned the water thing a little bit, but like it is the number one nutritional deficiency in the world. Water.
Water?
Yeah. Even for people who have access to clean drinking water, we're not drinking enough.
Huh.
Minimum intake is half of your body weight in ounces per day.
Oh, wow.
That's minimum. That doesn't include what you need in addition to like drinking any sort of diuretic. So if you're like drinking a coffee or a tea, you need more water on top of that. And then if you're being physically active, you need more water. But like to maintain good basic biological processes, if you weigh like 150 pounds, you need 75 ounces of water.
Huh. And then if you're drinking coffee, if you're exercising,
and if
then,
it, yeah,
then
if it's
more on
like,
top of that.
yeah, more on top of it.
Okay.
And then number two, I see it in climbers a lot, is that we're primarily sugar burners, meaning that like we're just eating too many like simple carbs. What I'm seeing with a lot of people is that they're having adrenal problems because of it. As opposed to like having a more balanced diet of like really good fats and proteins throughout the day. People like out at the crag, and even if it's fruit, like if they're eating apples or like dried mango, something like that, they're still like tapping into the glycogen and the glucose stores as opposed to being able to burn fat all day long. Yeah. So like if you're going out bouldering, you're going out to the crag, it's really good to have a mix of like, let's say nuts, cheese, celery, apples, something like that. And for sure, like in between your like hard bouldering efforts, you want that boost of sugar so that you can like get that fast acting like power. You can have like a goo or something like that, but like that shouldn't be what you're eating all day long. Like you need to bring the fat and the protein out with you.
Yeah, and probably not every climbing day. Maybe
Not
like
every
save
climbing
that
day.
as rocket fuel for like the really important ones. How do you eat in a day? Do you eat breakfast?
I eat breakfast.
What do you eat for breakfast?
It depends. I really love soup. So like if I can have
soup for breakfast.
I love soup for breakfast, especially like egg drop soup. Like if I make a lot of broths. So like a chicken broth with some like seaweed or some greens in it, and then crack 2 eggs inside of that. I really like that.
Interesting.
Or
do you drink coffee?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 cup of coffee.
And soup.
Coffee and soup.
Nice.
Or like overnight soaked oats.
Okay.
With chia seeds, coconut, and some yogurt.
Okay.
Avocado toast and eggs, stuff like that for breakfast.
Got you.
Yeah.
And then throughout the day, I mean, you already mentioned some snacks. Are you thinking more along those lines? Not.
It depends. If it's like, a day out, then for sure I'll bring like my little like lunch box is usually cheese, walnuts, apples, celery, sometimes like salami. Sometimes it'll be like a kimchi salad, nut butters. I'll bring that out to the crag. If I'm like at home, I'll eat just like a real meal for lunch. Maybe it's like fish tacos or whatever we had for dinner, like leftovers, salad and meat, something like that. On like big multi-pitch days, I've been making a lot of rice balls.
Okay.
And I have like a little pack that I like clip to my harness.
Yeah.
And I can fit like 8 rice balls in them.
Are there other things in there, or is it just rice?
It's rice either cooked in a broth or cooked with like a coconut oil.
Okay.
Pine nuts, like a salami or a chicken inside of it, and like sesame seeds.
Dude, that sounds amazing.
They're really good.
That's way better than like cliff shots.
Totally.
Nothing
And then
wrong with cliff shots.
sometimes it'll be like
incredible.
rice with fig and cheese.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about dinner?
And then dinner, it's usually like a protein and a vegetable, typically. Sometimes they'll be like, I love fish tacos. So I eat like quite a few fish tacos throughout the week. It's not to say that I like don't eat processed carbs, but we just don't eat that many of them. Yeah.
Do you eat red meat?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm really into like local and sustainable food as much as possible. I feel really lucky living in Bishop for that. I recently ordered about 120 pounds worth of locally raised cow.
Nice.
From this ranch in town.
Cool.
Yeah, which has been amazing. And I got organ meats, bones, and like choice cuts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way to do this, but if I could have one crazy add-on to the van, I wish I could have like a deep freezer to have like a quarter cow in the van. I don't really see that being feasible, but solar powered deep freezer with a cow in it.
Yeah.
But maybe one day. That's my food dream.
I like it.
My van dream. One thing I've been really excited about, and I'm no expert, but I'm just going to throw this out there, but it's really cool to see what some people are doing with regenerative agriculture. And I recently am kind of done a 180 because I was more or less a vegetarian for like 5 years.
Okay.
And as I said, I'm no expert, and I won't try to like put this out there as a push, but it's just I've like done a complete 180. I've like totally changed my mind around red meat, whether it can be healthy for us and whether or not it can actually maybe be a good thing for the environment. It's just a really interesting thing that there's a lot more information coming out about lately. So,
have you ever heard of Polyphase Farm?
Yeah.
I think his name's Joel Salatin that runs it, and he's out in the southeast, and I think that is like the ideal situation. If anyone's not familiar with that, you guys should look it up. Polyphase Farm.
I'll link to it in the show notes. I'll find some info on it.
Yeah.
Is that there's basically cycling the animals through different parts of the farm and then growing other crops behind them sort
That's
of thing?
right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I mean, it's so hard now because there's so many people. The population's just like kind of out of control. We're trying to feed the masses. So then, we've run into like monocultures and these large scale industrial farms. And none of that stuff's good. It's not a sustainable way, as we know. And so when I think people are like really talking about meat being kind of like the ruin of the environment and you shouldn't eat meat, I really think it's focused on that aspect of it, like these industrial farms. Feedlots, as opposed to these things that Joel Salatin's doing. And that's a huge shift in changing from one to the other, but I really think that's the way it needs to go.
Yeah, totally. That's really cool. One counter argument I hear all the time, because I've just been like kind of geeked out on this and I'm excited, so I talk about it. But the main counter argument that immediately comes up is, well, is there any way that could scale? How could that feed all of us? And I honestly haven't looked into it. I don't know. But do you have a sense of whether or not that could scale?
I just don't. I don't know. It's like it has to be brought back down to each community, basically. Like we have to truly eat locally. Which, man, I don't know how you do that now. It's almost like it's so far gone in a way to like bring it back in. Seems kind of mind-blowing to try to wrap your head around. I don't know. I don't have the answer. That's why I say I feel lucky in Bishop because we kind of have it all right there. But like here in Vegas, like I don't know. I don't know what people are doing. They're going to Kroger. I have no idea.
Whatever's on sale.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. One more point on that popped into my mind, because I see this all the time. I think climbers are a little bit unique in that because of our activity level, because we're doing a lot of things right, we're outside all the time. Generally, we have like really good community. We're really active. We do some strength training. Usually people have a lot more latitude and kind of get away with a crappy diet more than like the general population. But I've noticed I've noticed some friends actually having some interesting health issues that I'm kind of suspecting might be related to food. Are you seeing anything like that? Are you seeing any, if someone's like in really good shape and they look really fit, but maybe there's some stuff going on under the hood. Are you seeing other things that you attribute to diet?
For sure. Primarily, like, I see a lot of digestive issues, and people don't even really realize it. Like, farting all day long is not normal. Like, something's going on, Not going to the bathroom every day is not normal. And people just kind of get used to that. They're like, yeah, I only go 3 times a week or something. You're like, that's not okay. Like, something is going on. Even though you look, like you're saying, like pretty healthy, like that is a telltale sign right there that there's like an issue with your diet. And then in addition to that, yeah, maybe it's like funny little chronic injuries, or they just have like low energy. They're feeling like super fatigued, or they're having like some skin rash. Like all of that stuff, typically it comes back to diet. Yeah. It
is the one thing that affects us directly every single day.
Every single day.
The thing that we take in every single day.
Yeah.
It's shocking to me, I guess, how long I didn't think of it that way.
Right. I mean, we weren't taught anything about it, you know?
But of course, like you think about it that way, it's like, oh, I put this in my body, it becomes me, and I do it multiple times every day. Of course it's important.
Yeah.
I have one friend in particular who I'll leave anonymous, but pretty crappy diet, really good climber, looks fit, but pretty young and already dealing with some like arthritis and chronic inflammation sort of stuff in his fingers and hands and stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Are you seeing anything like that?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. In that case, do you have any recommendations?
There probably aren't enough essential fatty acids, like good fats being eaten. It's putting a strain on soft tissue and soft tissue repair. You're not getting enough amino acids, which also helps because we're breaking down an amazing amount of protein every single day to like build and repair. And if you're primarily like eating really poorly, sugary foods, highly processed stuff, like you're not getting those amino acids, you're not getting those essential fatty acids either. You're not like rebuilding correctly. Water. Huge thing, like who knows how much people are actually drinking. Not only does like water help us flush out all the toxins in our body, but it transports all of the nutrients around into our bloodstream. So without those things, it's like even if you're trying to eat well, if you're not having enough water, if you're not having enough fat, you're not actually like optimizing all of the vitamins that are in the foods, you're not getting that stuff back to your muscles and your soft tissue where it needs to go.
As I mentioned, I eat meat. You eat meat. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this will be, across the whole spectrum. Some people are probably vegetarian or vegan. Are there any recommendations that you would have as far as like getting essential fats and things like that if someone has conviction and really wants to stick to like a vegetarian or vegan diet?
Yeah, like combining your like legumes and grains is really important. Like you can't just eat beans. You're not going to get all 9 essential amino acids from that. Like you have to combine it with like or brown rice essentially. Being really diligent about your fats. So like eating avocados, eating coconut oil, taking like a flax oil supplement. Nuts, they're a really good source. You have to eat a lot of them, especially for like good protein intake. But what damages the nuts and the fat in them is heating them. You see this with like what's the smoke point of like certain oils, things like that. Well, it's the same thing with like all nuts and nut butters. If that stuff was like processed under high heat, those fat particles are damaged. Eating that stuff's gonna give you inflammation. So like eating these things raw and like soaked overnight is best. If you don't like them raw or that's like too much of a pain in the ass, then like very lightly roasted is best.
Okay. You mentioned that you like nut butters. What should people look for?
Peanut butters, I say stay away from. Peanut has like a particular fungus actually that can be like very prevalent. That's really hard on our digestive system. Peanuts anyways are really hard for us to digest. If you're having digestive issues, you're gonna have systemic inflammation. So like trying to mitigate that as much as possible. Almond butters are great. The farming of almonds is heinous. It uses so much water, so I don't totally recommend an almond butter. Cashew butter is pretty good. I don't know what types of other butters are really out there. We use a lot of cashew butter at home.
You mentioned the minimal processing thing.
Minimal
and the
processing.
thing. So are you making it yourself then?
No, but we have a really nice health food store in town, and she's really like up to speed on all of this stuff and really keen. And
so ask your local
health food store. Just like do some internet research. I mean, Google is amazing. You can find anything on there.
Yeah.
Really.
Cool. I have one last nutritional thing that I'd love to ask you about. Protein. Do you have a recommendation for protein intake? Because I kind of see most people probably chronically having too little.
Too little.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's similar thing with water in that like the minimum daily requirement or recommendation is 0.32 grams per pound of body weight.
Okay.
That's minimum, right?
So if you're 150 pounds, that's about 50 grams.
Right.
Absolute minimum.
Absolute minimum. Ideally, for athletes, people recovering from cancers, people with like other chronic diseases, it should be closer to body weight every day.
1 gram.
1 gram per pound.
Yeah.
People get freaked out by that and think it's too much. And so I kind of recommend people go 75% of body weight is a good range.
Okay. Is that just to appease people?
It's kind of to appease people, and it's like, it's a little more feasible, especially if someone doesn't have too much money, and they're like, how am I going to do that? Like, I recommend, like, a really good pasture-raised egg is amazing. I also recommend people buy, like, whole chickens. Cook the whole chicken. You get several meals out of it, and then you can make a broth from the carcass later, and then you're going to get even more protein and your essential amino acids there. But at 75%, it's more feasible for people to wrap their head around than like, you're telling me I need 150 grams of protein today. Like, how am I possibly going to do that? Once they start meeting that 75% requirement, it becomes easier for them to start meeting body weight.
Got it. Do you notice that people start noticing differences and feeling better, and then they kind of get on board?
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yep.
So 75%, if you're 150 pounds, that's like 110.
Right.
110 grams per day. Does that requirement, so my understanding, and again, I'm just kind of a geek that reads about this on the internet, but my understanding is that the bioavailability changes, between foods, that animal products are more bioavailable. Does the protein requirement change if you're eating animals versus not?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's the same numbers. It's just that if you're focused on vegetarian vegan diet, you have to have more. You need more to reach those numbers. Does that make sense? It's like, there's protein in kale.
Got it.
But it's like you need to eat 10 pounds of kale.
More volume of food.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you already mentioned this, but mixing like quinoa and beans to get a wider profile of amino acids.
Yep.
Okay. But they're still shooting for that 1 gram per pound. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
What else are you up to? Are you still writing?
I recently quit my column for Climbing Magazine.
Okay.
My last article is going to come out this spring.
Nice.
And it's going to be a feature article in climbing. And then after this, I'm going to take a little time off from writing. Once I started writing the column, as you might have noticed, I pretty much stopped writing on my blog because it's just too much. I'd like to get back to just writing my blog. It's fine writing a column, but it's also a little, there's some pressure to it because you're like, well, how am I going to keep coming up with something interesting that for the masses? It might be interesting to me, but if I'm putting it out there for the public, are they really going to care? Whereas if it's my blog, it doesn't matter. I can just write about whatever I want. I have been working on a cookbook for some years.
Sick.
So I would like to finish that, which was also kind of the impetus for stopping with the column.
Nice. Is that targeted towards climbers or just general?
It's kind of just general, and it's kind of also a narrative. So it's stories, almost like a autobiography with recipes included into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'm excited
When
about
can
that.
people expect that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not going to put a date out there.
Nice. Cool. Well, I'll keep my eye out for it.
Yeah.
And when it does drop, I'll be sure to share that.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah. And then I help run this nonprofit out of Yosemite called Sacred Rok.
Yeah.
We work with at-risk
You start that
youth.
with Ron Kauk?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We work with at-risk youth throughout California, Central Valley. These are like incarcerated kids or like highly marginalized kids coming from like very low income populations or coming off of reservations. And we basically just take them into nature for
Nice.
them to experience it for themselves. It's not like this hardcore curriculum that we're pushing. It's just giving them the opportunity to like be kids outside basically.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What is your role with that?
I am the chief operating officer, so I kind of see to all of our administrative and day-to-day tasks. But then I also function as like our camp cook and nutritionist.
Okay.
So I help lead some of the trips, especially camping trips that are taking place over the summer in Tuolumne.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like all of our meal planning for everything. And then if I can't go on a trip, there's another woman who lives over on the west side by Yosemite, who's like an Ayurvedic practitioner, and she'll work with me on the meals for those trips that I can't attend.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's pretty fun.
Are you teaching rock climbing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. So lately, a newer kind of contract that we've been working with are these students in Big Pine. Big Pine's a little town just south of Bishop. These kids are in 6th grade. They all live on the Big Pine Reservation. We've done 5 trips with them over the last, 11 months. No, maybe like 7 months. Yeah, and we've been taking them climbing
Nice.
almost every time.
Are they psyched?
They're psyched.
Dude, that's so cool.
They're psyched. And as much as they love the climbing, they also just love scrambling around on the boulders. And it's incredible because you can take them to a place, like a climbing specific area, and there's like established boulder problems. And they'll do some of them, but then they're like, let's go like scramble up that thing. And you're like, yeah, what is that? That's awesome.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
super cool.
That's cool.
Is that a year-round thing?
It's a year-round thing.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah. We're just wrapping up our 10th year, actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Is there a link? Is there a website or something I
Yeah,
can point
it's
to for
Sacred Rok, and Rok is spelled ROK.org.
that? Okay. I'll link to that for people that want to look into it more.
Yeah.
Cool. What is something that you have felt especially grateful for lately?
God, I mean, health, honestly.
Yeah.
I was just telling Jonathan and Shayna that I was sick over the winter for 24 days.
Damn, that's brutal.
It was brutal, and I hadn't been sick like that really ever. I hadn't had a cold in a really long time, and man, it just went on for so long. I felt like I was dying on some of those days, and like it was just amazing to go from like feeling super healthy to being like bedridden basically for like 8 straight days. I really couldn't like leave the house. Yeah, it just really puts it into perspective for you that like health is everything. Yeah.
I don't know if you're this way, but yeah, for me, if I get sick, like within about 48 hours, I turn into a little baby. Like, am I ever going to feel normal again?
Well, I think that's a man thing.
I can attest to that.
I think, males are like very bad patients, just total babies.
You don't get that at all, though? Are you like, am I ever going to feel like myself? Am I ever going to climb well
it
again?
It took me a little bit longer. It took about 5 days of being sick to be like, dang, I wonder when I'm going to get better. Ben also got a little bit sick. His didn't last nearly as long, but my gosh, he was pathetic.
It's just a man thing.
It's a man thing.
All right, well, I'll do some self-work on that. What is something that you're excited about right now?
Oh, shoot.
You got this trip to the Red?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this trip to the Red. I'm leaving on Sunday.
Nice. How long are you guys going for?
Ben's not going with me. It's just me and the dog. I'm
Nice.
staying with some friends. I'm going to climb with a girlfriend out there.
Okay.
I'm going for about 5 weeks. I'll be in the Red.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a project lined up?
I have a few. I don't want to say too much about
Pre-spray?
them. Yeah, no pre-spray. Some things that I tried previously, either with the intent of checking it out to come back later for, or kind of like some near misses that have kind of been on my mind.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
At the Q&A last night, Jonathan did ask you about any routes that really stood out. You did mention one. Are you willing to talk about that?
Sure, yeah.
Cool. I'd love to hear about that. What's the one that's kind of at the top of your list?
Meltdown in Yosemite Valley. I tried it the year after Beth did it.
Yeah, Beth Rodden did the first ascent.
Beth Rodden did the first
Is it
ascent.
14C?
It's 14C, and it's actually a line that Ron Kalk had tried in the 90s. It rests at the foot of a waterfall. So it's very conditions dependent. Sometimes it's totally shut down because the waterfall's raging. The rock's really smooth, so you can't climb on it in the summer, really. It's too hot. Anyway, he had tried it in the 90s, really was like kind of keen on it, but then discovered Magic Line and kind of went that direction with the idea of like always going back to it. Well, he kind of forgot about it, or life just happens, and Beth and Tommy found it. And I think it was the summer of 2008 that she did it. I tried it, or the winter of 2008 that she did it. And then I started climbing on it late fall of 2009 and had a really good season on it. It was pretty darn close. And then weather came in and the waterfall just raged on basically for the rest of the year. I went back to it a couple more times over the years with similar thing, like getting pretty stoked, and then the water would come or a storm would come. And then, I moved over to Bishop. The pass isn't always open, so getting from Bishop over to Yosemite is kind of involves like an 8-hour drive around. And like I say, life just happens sometimes, and you kind of get wrapped up in other things or objectives, but it's been on my mind for a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you'll be coming back to it stronger than I'm
yeah,
sure you
for
are
sure.
than you were 10 years ago? That's awesome. Do you have specific plans to go back to that?
I don't know. Jonathan hinted around that he's looking for a partner.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Sick. That's awesome. I'm psyched. I'll be rooting for you guys.
Thanks.
When you go down there and get back on it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Katie, you've mentioned a few times that you're just a lifer, and you just exude this enthusiasm and stoke that's like pretty contagious, and it doesn't seem like it's slowed down at all.
No.
If anything, it's just like the fire's just raging hotter and hotter. So it's really fun to feel that and to see that that's still as alive as ever.
Yeah.
Is Bishop your spot?
I
Is
love
that the perfect
Bishop.
place?
It's a small town. We don't have like all of the creature comforts of like a big city, But it's so close and like in the nature. I really like that about it. I love just being able to basically like walk out of our front door and we're like essentially in wilderness within like a few minutes. That's really special, I think, and really important to me to like be that connected to the land in a way. I don't know where else I would go and get that same feeling.
That's cool.
I joke a lot about like moving to Europe, even though like Europe is so developed. You don't get these like vast swaths of wilderness out there, but they've meshed their villages really well with the landscape that you really do just feel like you're out in nature, like you're part of it. I don't know. If Trump wins the election again, I think we're going to move to France.
Well, we will miss you, but we'll understand.
Yeah, but I also like the variety of climbing around Bishop.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Things keep breaking out there.
Holds
roots, which keeps things interesting. It also is a little bit sad. Some classics have gone from like classic to like, well, we're not really gonna climb on that anymore. Yeah, that's like something I lament a little bit, but aside from that, it's a good spot. Yeah.
You mentioned that you tried V11 this year, didn't quite do it. Is that on your radar?
Yeah, it's like I'm about to leave for the sport climbing trip in a few days. Probably, and I'm like tapering right now, so I'm like not gonna stress too much about it. Come fall, or like if I come back in the spring and conditions are still good, maybe. I probably won't be in good bouldering shape at that point, but it's not like I need to climb V11. Yeah.
Is there a specific route, or is it just kind of like a general goal that makes sense?
It's kind of a general goal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Anything else? Any final thoughts for people listening?
Yeah. I don't know.
I know that's a hard question.
That's a
bad question. It doesn't really work ever.
I don't know. we're
come up
really
with something
lucky.
wise and
We're really
insightful.
lucky to climb.
Yeah.
I think keeping that in the forefront is really important, especially when we're out there and we're about to like throw one of our wobblers, like some spoiled brat. Like, sure, it's understandable. We get upset because we're like not succeeding or whatever, and we put so much into it. But at the end of the day, like climbing is really fun and it's a great privilege. So if we can just keep that in mind, we'll have a better day out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Katie.
Thank
I'll
you.
be cheering for you in the red.
Thanks.
Have a safe trip and
Thanks.
see you later.
All right. Talk to you later.
Move with the rhythm, shake it up, stop when the clock hits 13. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it.